Hello everyone and welcome back to Nintendo Everything Refresh, the official podcast of NintendoEverything.com, coming at you every week with everything new and exciting in the wide world of Nintendo. And I'm your host Nick Serpa, joined today by Nicolas Shade.
Hello everyone.
And we've got Luiz Estrella.
Hey everyone, a pleasure to be here 2 weeks in a row.
Yes, that's true. Pour one out for Dennis though. We wish Dennis was here.
He'll be on the next one, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think the new Pokemon game, it must have really just affected his health because it's just yeah, that's the only reason. But yeah, in case we've kind of switched over to kind of a rotating cast thing right now, so we're hoping to get one with all four of us together soon. But in the meantime, I hope everyone is getting ready for the holidays. It is Thanksgiving week here in the United States. So if you're in the US, happy Thanksgiving. If you're elsewhere, hey, go enjoy a nice good meal this week. Just for the heck of it. And Luiz, you were saying you were watching the World Cup, so that's kind of a holiday, right?
Yeah, it just started today, in the day that we are recording, but when people are listening to this, probably a lot of the games are already happening. And because I'm from Brazil, every time there's a game where Brazil is playing, it's actually like a holiday here. I know that people from work watch together in the TVs and stuff like that, so yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, well, there's another big event coming up, and that event is the Game Awards, which it has, I don't know about you guys, but it's kind of become part of this whole season for me, which sounds a little weird to say.
Yeah.
I'm actually super excited. I'm going in person for the first time ever. I've always wanted to go, so I'm really looking forward to that. But this week, we actually got to see all the nominations for the Game Awards. And the big question for Nintendo fans is always, which games, if any, like where are we going to see nominations? Are any games up for Game of the Year? And there were some surprises in there. So we're going to start off talking about that. We're going to talk a little bit about the new Splatoon 3 season. We got a new trailer for Fire Emblem Engage this week, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And then just some other interesting tidbits towards the back of the show. We'll talk a little bit about Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, but we'll talk about that at the end because I don't want to start off the show on a downer note. As far as the Game Awards goes, first of all, do you guys watch the Game Awards? I feel like it's getting bigger and bigger every year.
I've tried to every year. It's a little bit harder when I'm in Europe because it takes place at like 1:30 in the morning. So... Yeah, it's not the best for European time zones, but I try to if I can.
That's fair.
I do the same. It's a little it's during the night here in Brazil, but it's okay to watch. But usually, I don't watch every single minute of it because it is very long, and honestly, not every single thing that is mentioning or every single thing that is happening I actually care usually because there's a lot of different stuff going on. Mm-hmm. But usually I try to watch it. I think I like the vibe of the events and to celebrate the games and all of that stuff. Even if we have some criticism and stuff like that, overall I think I enjoy the event.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. It is very long. I think it's getting close to 3.5, 4 hours now, which is probably a little too long, but maybe not. I don't know. I mean, the Oscars is kind of an all-night event, right? So, I don't know. But yeah, no, if you guys are listening and you haven't checked out the Game Awards, I think it's a really fun event. It's just a celebration of video games. They go through most of the big games that came out this year, and there's all these different categories that our games are nominated for, and it's actually open to the public. So the games that end up winning like Game of the Year and Best Music and Best Art Direction, those are all voted on by the public and then also by media outlets. So it's an interesting system, but then on top of the actual Game Awards portion, there is also just a ton of new game reveals and announcements. So it's kind of turned into a little mini E3 at this point, which, hey, you're not going to hear any complaints from me.
Yeah.
But let's talk about some of the nominations, because Nintendo actually had a pretty decent representation in the Game Awards nominations this year. In total, I think there were like 10 or 11 different things that they were up for. It was pretty impressive. And the big thing was that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a nominee for Game of the Year, right alongside, the best from like Sony, like Horizon Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok and Elden Ring. And then you got Xenoblade Chronicles 3 in there. So I think that's a huge deal.
As you can imagine, I think both Luiz and I are very happy about this.
For sure.
I can imagine.
Yeah, like I was hoping to see the game being. I felt that the game could be nominated, but I wasn't 100% sure because in the past the series has been completely forgotten in the Game Awards. But this time, like, if you pay a visit to Jeff Keighley Twitter or the Game Awards Twitter, you'd see loads of comments from Xenoblade fans asking for Xenoblade to not be forgotten in this nomination. So I was actually pretty happy to see the game receiving that kind of recognition, because it's a little bit hard for a Japanese JRPG to appear like that in those nominations, and to a game that is not as popular as names like God of War, as Elden Ring being actually put in the same page as those other brands.
Yeah, the community's sting operation proceeded successfully, and the game has finally been recognized.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I mean, one critique that often comes up with the Game Awards is that, most of the games that are nominated for Game of the Year are all these really big, like, games that are just very popular, and that it's kind of a popularity contest of sorts. And as much as Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is, from everything I've heard, just an outstanding RPG, it's not gonna push the same amount of copies as, something like God of War or Elden Ring. So, that is... So the fact that it did get included is, I think, a good sign for the direction of the show as a whole. Because it at least... I still would like to know more about the actual process of how these games are picked. But it's nice to see that they've kind of diversified the slate a little bit here. All right, so since you guys have played Xenoblade Chronicles 3, do you guys think it has a shot of winning compared to some of the competition? Like what, do you guys think this could actually be the Game of the Year?
No.
I mean, honestly, it being nominated for Game of the Year is enough of a win. That's enough recognition. But compared to like Elden Ring and God of War, which are the two, obvious favorites for winning, I don't think the game is going to win that. The other two categories are kind of interesting. It's RPG and best score, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And RPG is a weird one because I feel like it very well could win there, but also Elden Ring is nominated.
Yeah.
And if Elden Ring is going to be the, sweeps every award game, it might just grab that one as well. Score is neat, though. I honestly think it has a decent chance of winning score and music because it just, I don't know, giving the other games on the list, they have good music as well, but Xenoblade is just so... Its music is just so powerful, and that holds true for the third games as well. And I would just... That's a category that I think it could potentially win in, but then again, the Game Awards have also usually favored more Western-developed games with, I guess, more cinematic soundtracks compared to the usual, like, big Japanese RPG fanfare type stuff.
Sure.
So, we'll see.
Yeah,
it's always hard to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Nicolas. I think with the score we have like a small, but we have a chance because the score on Xenoblade is so over the top, so many music, so many orchestral pieces inside the game. So it really is a big effort. And like, I think one of the things that leave me most excited from the fact that the game is nominated for Game of the Year is the fact that we are going to see the Game Awards orchestra playing a Xenoblade song. So it's already amazing to me to see that on the stage on the night. So I'll definitely watch that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think, for best RPG, first of all, it's also worth noting that Live Alive is in that category, so that's pretty cool. Because that's, I'd say even more niche RPG.
Yeah,
than something
definitely.
like Xenoblade. So I don't know if Live Alive really has a good shot, but I feel like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 could pull through. The reason why I think Elden Ring may not win that category is just because I think, like, even though the game definitely has a lot of fans, and it's a good iteration of this whole Dark Souls style combat system, and it is a very, I don't know if it's something that's like as accessible. Like I think it's a game that is going to be a lot harder for people new to that type of game to get into. Whereas what I've heard about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is that, even if you're a newcomer to the franchise and maybe even to the genre, you can still get in and enjoy a really good story and a really fun world to explore. Games like Elden Ring just make me stressed, whereas a good RPG, I'm like having fun most of the time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I can
overall,
see that.
Yeah, I'm just happy with the nominations that they get. I could see people being a little bit annoyed or disappointed that it didn't get nominations for narrative or performance. I don't know if I necessarily agree with narrative, because I do think the narrative of Xenoblade 3 has some issues, especially at the end. But I am a little sad that we didn't get any acknowledgement for performance, because, man, some of the actors in Xenoblade 3 give some really good performances.
Yeah, I agree. I think overall those two categories are still very much... they are still a little... It's a little hard for them to recognize those games from the Japanese games, recognize them for the story, because it's more of an anime kind of story and stuff like that. So I think for the kind of award that the Game Awards is, I still think that they have this kind of difficult to recognize in those areas.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, Nintendo does have some other nominations in the show. I already mentioned Live Alive. But they also, usually they come in towards like the family categories and stuff. But Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, that got a nomination for best sim/strategy game, and also for best family game, which I think it definitely is a good shot at best sim strategy game. It's definitely like the most approachable compared to the other games that are nominated in that category, like. Versus like Total War and Victoria and Dune Spice Wars, like it feels like kind of the outlier, but I don't know. That game was just so innovative to me, and I think for the genre as a whole, I think that one has a pretty good shot there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. And then, they also, in the family category, they have Nintendo Switch Sports and Splatoon 3.
Yeah. And Kirby.
And Kirby.
Right, let's not forget Kirby. Kirby's my vote, personally.
Yeah.
They're almost certainly going to win something there, because they have 4 out of the 5 nominations in Best Family Game.
Could you imagine Lego Star Wars winning?
I mean, I could see it. It was a really good game, but...
Yeah, it's not a bad game. Yeah, true. But I just think that one of my criticisms to the Game Awards, that usually the family category is the Nintendo category, but I think they kind of use that as an excuse to not nominate some Nintendo games to other categories. Like Kirby could easily be as best action game, or even Splatoon 3 could be in one of the online categories, but I think usually they try to suppress all of Nintendo content in the best family category.
Yeah,
which, like, what is the best family
thing.
game? Like, what is that category? What exactly defines a family game? I found it a little weird.
It is an odd category when you think about it.
Yeah, some people might say, like, oh, they're just games that can be enjoyed by all ages, which I guess I could understand. But the other interpretation is games that are best played, like, with the family, like, multiple people in front of the TV. In which case, like, I don't think Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope would really be a good fit for that, but something like... Nintendo Switch Sports might be great, but yeah, it is a little ambiguous.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then going back to the role playing category, on top of Live Alive and Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Triangle Strategy got a nomination there. Pokemon Legends Arceus got a nomination, so it's. I mean, Nintendo definitely has like some representation. Like their games are getting recognized. Splatoon 3 is a nominee for best multiplayer, which actually I think has a good shot because compared to the other games on that list, their multiplayer actually worked out of the gate. So there you go. If Overwatch 2 wins best multiplayer, people will probably be very upset.
The Arceus nomination for RPG is a little odd to me. Because, like, I understand that it's mainstream and that Arceus got a lot of positive reception at when it released. But it's still, like... I still feel it's a situation where it's still a Pokemon game that needs a lot of improvement. And I can get giving it a nomination because it was a step forwards, but I still feel like it's probably not as good of an RPG as some of the other RPGs that came out this year overall.
Mm-hmm. Like in terms of its overall mechanics of like moving the industry forward
just as a game
that.
in terms of the polish it had, you know.
However, looking from the perspective of the Game Awards, I think Legends Arceus is the perfect game for this category because it is definitely a JRPG, but it also is very, very popular. And I think that's basically the kind of game that they are looking for. A game popular, but is actually really good to play. So I can see why, but overall, I'm really happy with this category to see so many JRPGs because usually we see a lot of Western RPGs. Like, I think there's a year where one of the winners was a DLC for The Witcher, which, okay, it was a great DLC, but like to see actually Japanese games here, I'm really happy.
You know, we didn't get like Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak as best RPG, which is a Japanese company, but at the same time, I don't know, games like Monster Hunter or Elden Ring, like as much as I enjoy them, they're really good games. They've always felt more to me like action or action adventure games before RPGs, so it's always kind of felt odd to see them in the RPG category.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I will say one thing that I kind of wish we had seen is the best sports and racing category. I really think Switch Sports should be in there, and the reason why I think that is because compared to some of the other games in here, right, like FIFA 23, right, that game, they churn out a new one every single year with minimal changes, right, and people buy it and play it in troves, but is it really the best sports game? Like, is it really up there? And like Switch Sports like certainly has like a lot of problems. It's not like the most in-depth sports game or whatever, but it's fun and it's like a fun, unique take on sports. And like this genre, like other than like they have Ollie Ollie World down there at the bottom, but I don't know. It's I mean everyone's gonna have opinions about like what game should be where or whatever, but they can't make everyone happy.
It is genuinely a little surprising not to see Switch Sports or like Mario Strikers in that category, because it would have felt like a fairly natural shoe-in even if those games weren't the best.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna bring up Mario Strikers, but
I mean, listen,
that's a rough
it's not
one.
like it's that much worse than Switch Sports, you know? At least it's not taking months to add in a golf game.
Oh my god.
Right, right. Just to add in, more than one arena to play in, that's...
One thing that I was just thinking about here, it just came to me right now, but Live Alive being announced is kind of crazy, right? Because it was this really JRPG that was released years ago, and it didn't quite receive a lot of success. It didn't sold a lot, but now years later after release, it's receiving a remake, a very unexpected remake, and is actually being nominated for best RPG. So it's kind of a very surprising situation that the game is.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. Live Alive really is a good RPG. It's just nice to see this recognition, and I'm also really happy that it means, we have two HD2D games actually.
Yeah,
it's like let HD2D rise further and further.
True.
Yeah. So yeah, well, we will know in about 2 weeks if Nintendo's gonna bring home any awards this year. I have a sense they'll bring home at least a few. But yeah, the Game Awards are on December 8th this year. So if you haven't watched it, I would recommend it. It's a fun event, fun way to close out the year. And I enjoy it.
Oh, but by the way, Nintendo's actually on another nomination, on most anticipated game. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of Kingdom is actually here, and I don't know if it's going to win, but for me, it's my most anticipated game, so I think it has a good chance.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. There's a lot of games coming out next year, though. I mean, oh gosh, I'd have a hard time picking just one game that I'm excited for. Yeah, especially in February. We don't even want to talk about February. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about Splatoon 3. The Splatoon 3 has been trucking along, absolutely crushing it. Lots of people have been playing it, enjoying it. They just had a Splatfest. Gosh, it wasn't this weekend. It was like last weekend, I think.
Yeah, it was last weekend.
Yeah.
Results came in the Monday.
Yeah, Pokemon themed, grass, fire, and water. Nicholas, give us the verdict. What happened?
Team Water, yes! Completely unexpected, but I'm very happy that Team Water won. So,
Was that your team?
yes, it was my team. I definitely did not expect it to win because they were the defenders during the halftime, and the last two Splatfests, the defenders kind of got completely trounced. But, breaking the pattern, and they swept every single category, so big man sweep.
Yeah. So, since you've been playing these Splatfests, Nicholas, I remember one of your initial concerns with the whole tricolor thing was that it didn't feel particularly balanced. Has that changed at all? Do you feel like people are more enjoying that part of the Splatfests now?
A little bit. It's interesting because in the very first Splatfest before launch, like, no one was really experienced with the game, and I didn't really get to play many of the Tricolor Turf Wars, so it didn't, I can't really build a good impression around that. And then in the second Splatfest, they reduced the rate of the Tricolor Turf Wars so harshly that you basically could not play them at all, so I didn't even get to try them then. Here I actually was able to play, like, 13 of them as defenders, and I won 10 of them. So I do think that it's more balanced than it initially seems. It just requires a little bit of a learning curve to figure out what exactly you're supposed to do as a defending team or an attacking team, and what angles to cover and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I'd also just imagine just as people are getting more comfortable with it and the dynamics of everything that, they'll just be like, figuring out the extra layers of depth to it.
Yeah, just getting more used to how the game works itself is probably a huge difference in terms of the results.
Right. Now, what's your take on... So we got a little bit of Splatoon 3 news this week. They've announced a new season. So they're taking this season approach. And their next season is coming December 1st. It is called the Chill Season. I don't know why that's so funny to me. I guess it's kind of like winter themed. But it's bringing in some new weapons and stages. Some new gear, so new things to buy in the shops, I presume. Victory emotes, and some new game modes. So a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, I mean, all around, I'm really excited for it. It's a very different content update format compared to what Splatoon 1 and 2 got, where there was a while there where they were getting updates like every week, every 2 weeks at the start of the game's launch, adding like one weapon or like one stage. Whereas here, Splatoon 3, it's a very much, you're going to get something every 3 months, and it's going to be a pretty big content drop. And we weren't really aware of how big it was going to be until this trailer. And yeah, I would say this is probably worth waiting 3 months for, because it is adding quite a lot.
So, in terms of this new mode, I was not really sure if I understood like what exactly it is. So they're calling it like an X battles. Can you kind of just help me understand, like, or is this just like a different type of ranked mode? Is this something else?
Sure. So X battles are a returning feature from Splatoon 2. Basically, they're your cream of the crop, hyper competitive kind of rank battles, where it kind of does away with the whole letter ranking of the normal rank battle, so your C through S+, and instead you just have a number which is directly associated to your Glyco 2 rating, which is basically just the method your game uses to figure out what your skill level is. Kind of determine that and then do matchmaking based on that. And X battles directly reflect that rating, and because of that, they end up being a more accurate kind of assessment of your ability. And since they're restricted to people that are in, I think S plus 10 or higher, there are only very good players playing that. It's going to be the more competitive setting, and because it shows you an actual rating, people are going to be able to get a better estimation of how good they actually are compared to the current ranked system, which definitely has flaws in its matchmaking.
Yeah, that's kind of, someone commented on NintendoEverything.com. They said, "There's nothing chill about being constantly reminded how bad I am at this game." And that makes me laugh. Okay, so it's not really introducing a lot of new mechanics. It's just a different way to compete.
No,
with people,
it's just ranked battles in terms of the actual modes. It's still the same modes. It's just using a different kind of ranking system.
Gotcha.
I think,
so it seems like Oh, go ahead, Luis.
No, I was just going to say that the big addition, I think, here is the big run, the new modes, which is actually new. But I actually didn't fully understand how it actually worked, but it apparently brings some elements from the salmon run to the co-op experience.
Yes, big run. Well, we don't know the exact details about it yet. It seems it's going to be a Splatfest-like event where it's going to be something where, there's a big announcement and all the players are going to try and... There's going to be some kind of leaderboard. Players are going to try and compete for something, maybe. We don't know the details, but what we do know is that it's basically going to be normal Salmon Run gameplay, but rather than taking place on the specific Salmon Run stages, they're going to be adjusting normal gameplay stages that you would just play in, like, PvP, and use those instead.
Okay. Well, it sounds like they have a little bit more to tell us about that before that actually happens, but... It's great to see that they're doing this. I will say, like, with this whole season approach, so does that mean that, like, some of these things are not going to be in the game forever? Because a lot of times with, like, the seasons approach, they're like, oh, this season we're having this, but then after this, we're taking all this content back out and putting something else in instead.
Yeah. At this point, we don't actually know. The seasonal content in the game is basically two separate things, for this season at least. It's the catalog, which goes up to level 100, and we don't know if the catalog is going to get replaced next season or if it's just going to be, like, backlogged, where basically once you complete the catalog you're currently on, it will just automatically put you on the new seasons. We don't know if that's how that'll work. And then the other thing is that there's, like, a little gacha-style mini-game, kind of, where you can spend your money to get, like, a title or, like, a banner for your special, like, ID card, stuff like that. And there's an exclusive banner and an exclusive title that is specifically tied to the current season. And so presumably once the new season rolls around, that one won't be available anymore. But again, we don't know if that's going to be, unavailable forever or if it's going to return in, like, a future season. So there's still several unknowns in that regard.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, Nintendo can't give us all the information all at once. I mean, they would just never do that. So...
It would be too easy.
I think
overall, I'm really happy with this. I think 13 weapons, 10 returning, and 3 brand new ones. It's 2 new PvP stages. They recently announced there's also going to be 1 returning Salmon Run stage from Splatoon 2, so that'll give us a total of 4 Salmon Run stages, which is nice. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to be trying out everything once it comes out. Maybe writing some guides for the site. We'll see. But I'm excited for it.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Stay tuned to NintendoEverything.com to read Nicolas's in-depth behind-the-scenes guides to Splatoon 3. There you go. Very cool. Okay, so on top of that, again, this was actually kind of a surprisingly busy week. And I wasn't expecting this, but I guess it makes sense. So Fire Emblem Engage is right around the corner. We're getting it, end of January? And we got January 20th, and we got a new trailer this week that gave a pretty in-depth look at, like, where the story's trying to go, theme-wise, a better look at just the art style and the cinematics, and I was really impressed with this trailer. It's it's definitely a Fire Emblem game. It's like this kind of like grimdark story, but also just very like melodramatic and kind of silly in a way. So that's great to see that. I think my big takeaway though is I'm blown away by how this game looks. Like if this game actually looks like this on the Switch, I'll be really just impressed.
Yeah, visually it's a massive improvement over something like Three Houses.
True. Maybe that's related to the fact that Gust is developing the game. I think they are being a little more they know a little better how to use the hardware to make some beautiful graphics. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the character designs very much feel more like something like Gust would produce compared to like Intelligent Systems or Koei.
Yeah,
so
like
I think that's definitely a huge part of it.
I can see why some people would not like that kind of art style, but to being honest, that's exactly the style that I like because it has some really colorful places, and I just really enjoy that. I think it's a similar case to the second Xenoblade, right, where they come with a more colorful art. Yeah. It's way more colorful than the Three Houses, I think, compared to that. So I can see why some people are like, I'm not sure about these main characters with two colors in the hair and stuff like that. But overall, I like to see the creativity from the designers and the artists to create those characters and those places. And so far, I'm excited to play these games, and because it's Fire Emblem, I know that the game will be fun because the gameplay is actually it's always like really fun to play with the style and all of that. But I'm actually enjoying the story, the characters. It seems to be a very over the top thing that I enjoy. Usually, I enjoy.
Yes. I think the big question we all ask is, will our Joy-Con protagonist, will he suffer from Joy-Con drift at some point in the game? I don't know.
I hope not.
Just slowly drifts off screen in the middle of a cinematic. Just, No, I'm really excited to see this game. I still can't believe we're getting another Fire Emblem game. So I don't know. I guess it feels like it wasn't that long since the last Fire Emblem game, but I guess it has been a couple years. It doesn't feel that way to me.
We did get Fire Emblem Warriors just this year, so that might be contributing to it.
Right.
Yeah, it's been one of those series from Nintendo where we are always receiving something new, even if it's not a main game, but there's always a spin-off, the mobile game, there's always something going on. So yeah, I can see why you got
Which is crazy because that was not the case for quite a while, you know, and look where we are now.
Yeah, we've gone from the series almost dying to getting super consistent new entries and spin-offs.
Exactly. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's something else that kind of came back this week. So for all of you here in America, you might at least be a little familiar with Nintendo Power Magazine. This was the big kind of Nintendo print magazine that had been around since the 80s. And this magazine was a part of my childhood. I mean, I remember I picked up my first copy one time at the bookstore, and then after that I was hooked, and I had a subscription for a long time. I even I would go to summer camp. I went a couple years, and my mom, she would mail me my Nintendo Power magazine so I could read it while I was at camp. It was great. But yeah, so the magazine, they stopped producing new issues around 2011. I think it was just before the Wii U launched. And but the good news is that if you, like me, have nostalgia for this magazine, you can now read every single issue ever published over on archive.org. A bunch of folks have been scanning these old issues and trying to back them up to preserve them for history. Archive.org they're a really great organization. They do a lot of work like this. So I'm really happy to see that these are all freely available now.
Yeah, I haven't had much experience with Nintendo Power. Just growing up in Europe, it just, there's not really as much of an opportunity to get into it. But considering, just the name Nintendo Power has so much legacy behind it, it's impossible kind of to not be aware of it. And seeing that it has been conserved in some ways, it's heartwarming.
Yeah, no,
I'm sure. Like Luiz and Nicolas, you guys probably have some like regional equivalent, right? Of like a Nintendo magazine, or you used to maybe.
Here in Brazil, we had the Nintendo World was the magazine. It stopped more or less on the same time that Nintendo Power stopped, and It's just I think it's very nostalgic for us because we remember buying those magazines, and at the time, without the internet, all the information that we had was the magazine. So it was super excited to buy this thing that had so many stuff about the games, about the games that would come out, so many news, stuff about new hardware, new games announced. So I think it's like how things worked in the past, right? We didn't had something like Nintendo Everything to know everything about the company and stuff like that. So it's just super nostalgic.
Yeah. I used to have a UK publication, Official Nintendo Magazine, that I would follow. Like, living in France, I would specifically ask my parents to subscribe me to it so I could get an issue every month. It's definitely something you look upon fondly.
Yeah, it's so crazy to think that like kids who are growing up now, they don't really have something like that. You can't get a physical like magazine really in the mail. I mean, you can, but there's not a lot of gaming magazines left anymore. I mean, here in the US, the big one that comes to mind is like there's a PlayStation magazine, there's an Xbox magazine, and there's Edge magazine, which is imported from Europe, so it's really expensive here. But yeah, like that's pretty much it. Nintendo doesn't really have a magazine anymore, and I wish they did, because I would probably still pay for
it. Even when the magazine started to be really outdated, because the Nintendo World that I was mentioning, it was monthly. So by the time that during 2011, 2010, by the time the magazine was released, a lot of the news were already pretty old at the time. But I would still buy it just because I like to have the magazine, and because it always came with a poster in the inside. So I always enjoy to have the poster.
Yeah, even now I have like a half dozen posters in my room that all come from the gaming magazine I subscribed to like a decade ago.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't really have anything like that. I think I still have a bunch of my old physical Nintendo Power issues back at my family's house, but I don't know. I gotta dig those up sometime. That'd be a little trip down memory lane. But I really do credit like these magazines for like opening up my taste, because like, you know, before I started reading the Nintendo Power magazine, my only knowledge of games that were coming to Wii were like the games that my friends had, or the games that, you know, I got for Christmas or my birthday or whatever I saw on the shelf at GameStop. And I'd you know, you go into the store sometimes, you see games like, oh, I wonder what that is, but you wouldn't buy it because you didn't know anything about it. So I actually really, like, as a kid, like I really actually enjoyed reading about all these games and be like, oh, my parents won't let me play that one, it's too violent, or whatever, or oh, that one looks good, and then I'd buy it and be disappointed. But good memories. So cool. So yeah, just wanted to highlight that. Now here's a game that is going to be much harder to buy, the opposite of preservation. So do you guys remember the Cooking Mama Switch game that came out a few years ago, Cooking Mama Cookstar?
Oh, do I ever?
How could you
never
forget?
played it, but yeah.
Yeah, so just a quick summary of this whole debacle. That's really the best word for it. So the Cooking Mama games, you know, they're the DS's, I don't know what you'd describe them as, but they were these great little mini-game focused cooking games on the DS, where you had to cook things, you know, by doing things with the stylus, and if you screw up, her name is Mama, she gets very mad at you and demonize and does not approve of your cooking failures. That's about how I'd sum it up. Anyways, we hadn't gotten a new Cooking Mama game in quite a while, since the 3DS days, and they put it out on the Switch, but then it pretty much immediately became impossible to buy because apparently there were all these copyright issues between the developer, Office Create, and the publisher, Planet Entertainment. So for a while, you couldn't buy it on the eShop at all. And then eventually they were like, all right, we're going to sell it physically on our website, but that was the only way you could buy it. And I think it's more accessible now, but that has changed. Apparently they are pulling copies. So the saga of this game continues. The publisher is suing the developer, and it's all a big mess.
You have to wonder how this arose from a Cooking Mama game of all things.
Yeah, it's not exactly a barn burner franchise nowadays, but the whole thing came down to like intellectual property rights. So I guess the publisher like got mad that the developer put their game on more platforms than they were supposed to. Like, I think it's something to do with like the PS4. Yeah,
it's a very weird issue because if I recall correctly, it was something like the publisher released the game without the developer's consent, which is not something you really hear about in the industry.
Yeah, but it could happen, right?
Yeah, it was like the game didn't meet their quality standards, so they didn't want to release it, but then someone released it anyways, and so now people are getting sued.
I wonder what are the quality standards for Cooking Mama? Not saying that the game should be bad, but it's a simple game, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's
this cast iron pan is scratched.
Yeah, you can't have that. Yeah. Well, yeah, the game is not on the eShop at the moment. You could probably still buy a physical copy. I mean, they were selling it for quite a while, so if you're trying to complete your collection, you better
hoard your physical copies of Cooking Mama Cookstar, because those will be the currency in the new age.
Yes, someday they will be the bedrock of our society. Physical copies of Cooking Mama Cookstar. And one last kind of big news topic we want to touch on this week, a little bit unexpected. So Bayonetta 3, as I'm sure most of our listeners are aware, is out, is very good according to a lot of people, and the director came out recently and he was making some comments about Bayonetta 3's ending, which we're not going to spoil here, but basically what he said, in a way, like, he flat out said, like, Bayonetta 4. Like, he was like, there's gonna be, like, we're trying to lay the groundwork for the next Bayonetta game. And so, that's exciting. It's not, like, outright confirmation, but, like, that this game is happening, but it at least shows that they want to make one.
Yeah, it's not too unexpected, considering that I'm pretty sure Bayonetta 3 is probably gonna be, the most successful Bayonetta game. And they clearly love this franchise, so I don't think they're about to just leave it alone. I have not finished the game myself, but I have kind of gathered just from public impression some of the stuff that happens in the ending. And yeah, I can understand why people might not be a huge fan of it. And I'm kind of curious what exactly he means by, like, people not understanding or not being able to tell what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I saw some people that really wasn't very happy with the ending, because like some Bayonetta fans were expecting something a little bit different for the character, and they felt that some of the stuff that happens on Bayonetta 3 are a little bit out of the character. But really, I don't know anything about the ending. That's just what other people told me. So I don't know exactly what happens. But I think it's a given that Bayonetta 4, they will try to do that. But I wonder how easy it will be, because Hideki Kamiya said that Bayonetta 3 was not that easy to get. He actually had to convince Nintendo to produce that. And I'm not surprised, because the Bayonetta series surprisingly doesn't sell that much. Like, he managed to get to that 1 million bar and stuff like that, but usually doesn't go very far. So, yeah, I hope the Bayonetta 3 is a success, but before we actually see the numbers, I don't know if we have if they are going to 100% develop the fourth one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, if nothing else, to see what Platinum works on next, whether that be Astral Chain 2, or if it's, I think they have another project in the works that they've been hyping up, but they haven't really revealed too much on.
Yeah. I think it's Project GG, something like that. I'm not sure if it's exactly
that sounds
name.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am a little surprised, honestly, that they would bring this up so soon. I mean, considering that the game just came out, and I mean, as much as these games are loved by fans, they don't sell very well. After Bayonetta 2 got kind of stuck on the Wii U, I think there were folks that did never really expect to hear from the franchise again. So the fact that we did eventually get a Bayonetta 3 kind of feels like a miracle in of itself, just knowing how game publishing and development works nowadays. So yeah, it feels a little bit premature. I mean, hey, I'm all for more good games being made. But I can't imagine they've seriously started work on this game already. I'd love to be proven wrong, but
Yeah, it's going to be a few years.
It took so long between the announcement and the release of Bayonetta 3. Like, it's hard to get excited about them talking about Bayonetta 4 this early.
I wonder if this is just a way that Kamiya wants to get the public support on this. Like, if he tried to pitch Nintendo about this, he just wants to say, hey, look how people are excited for this and stuff like that.
Right, look how many retweets we got. And yeah, I mean, there is some level of efficacy to that. Like, that can really have an impact on some of those things. So yeah, we'll see. But I just thought it was an interesting little tidbit to mention. All right, let's talk about a game.
Just watch at the Game Awards. We're going to get a teaser trailer for Bayonetta 4, and then it's going to be another 10 years before the game comes out.
Sounds about par for the course nowadays. All right, let's talk about one game that actually came out this week, although not to the roaring thunderous applause.
By technicality, really.
Yeah, it's technically out. I guess you could consider it a global playtest of sorts if you want to. Pokémon Scarlet and Violet is out now, and general reception has not been great. I don't think none of us have played it yet, and I think some of us are holding off specifically because of the general reception not being great. But the game is just a mess technically, like way worse than I had thought it would be. You know, based on what we had seen in the trailers, I was actually feeling pretty optimistic. It was like, it's not going to run amazing well, but like it's probably going to be better than Sword and Shield. No. No. It's not been the vibe that I've been getting from folks.
I mean, credit where credit is due. I have never been more entertained watching clips of a just released Pokemon game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the social commentary might be a little more entertaining than playing the game itself at this point. Which is a shame because, like, man, this game has so many good ideas, in my opinion. Like,
exactly.
I really want to play this type of Pokemon game. I want to play... It's even... Dude, this is an RPG in an open world, and it's got, like, the whole, like, high school setting and stuff. Like, those are, like, 3 of my favorite RPG tropes, you know? Like... And you throw all that in there with Pokemon and a really nice art style, and they're doing some new interesting things mechanically, narratively. You know, the fact that you can approach the whole game in any order, it's pretty open-ended. I mean, there's a lot to get excited about, but man, I don't know what went wrong with this release.
Because here's the thing, right? If you go to Metacritic and try to read the reviews, you'll see that actually most of them are talking good things about the game. Are talking good things about the gameplay, about the story, about the new approach. But every time when they start talk about the actual experience with the bugs, with the frame rate, with the resolution, things take a terrible turn to the bad, because the game really seems like it is unfinished, right? And it just feels like the game is fighting itself. There's a great game inside it, but there's all the technical stuff is actually pushing it back and making the actual experience worse. Like, we are not only talking about visuals. We know that sometimes you can play a game that look ugly or not that beautiful, but
sure.
So far, if you look at the Pokemon Company, like Legends Arceus, that game had some rough patches. Like, it had some moments where the things would pop in your face, or the frame rate would not be as smooth. But here, like, there's a lot of actual bugs, like things that make your experience worse. Like, it's not at the level of something like Cyberpunk, I think, so far. But it is at a level that can make your experience worse. So for me, like, video games are super expensive. So I don't see myself at the moment because I'm not that big of a Pokemon fan also, I don't see myself actually buying the game right now.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating, right? Because there was no real need to release... Obviously, you know, they're releasing games every so often because they have all the merchandise that follows and whatnot. But, like, Legends Arceus came out this year. There was no real need to release this game so soon. They could have spent, like, at least another half year polishing it. And they just didn't. And now, you know, they have to lay in this bed.
And we're also talking about a company with just an immense amount of money and resources and the backing of Nintendo. And I really cannot fathom why this game had to be put out now in this state. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it could. I mean, I think something a lot of people are going to point to is just that, the Switch is getting older and maybe the Switch can't handle games like this. But I really don't think that's true because we do see good open world RPGs come to Switch. We see very visually impressive games come that still run great to this day. So I don't think it's that the Switch can't handle these games. I just think it's just the work is not being put in the right areas, perhaps, or something. But it's really a shame.
I mean, Game Freak is with one of the biggest developers in the world, which is Nintendo. They could very easily ask for help. Ask for like Monolith Soft, I don't know, any company from Nintendo that has worked with open world experience. I think I don't see a reason why they wouldn't help one of the biggest franchises in the world to release their new open world experience. Because here's the weird thing: Pokemon is running worse than some of the third-party games. Like Sonic Frontiers just released recently, and it runs better than this game, and it is a third-party experience. So to see,
I wouldn't go that. As someone who's playing Sonic Frontiers, I don't know if I would say it really runs well at all, but that's
comparatively.
I would argue that it's a lot harder to make Sonic Frontiers run on the Switch because it's a game that you are always running on top speed than Scarlet and Violet, which is a JRPG.
This is true.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Sonic was also designed for other consoles like the PS5, where Scarlet and Violet is exclusively a Switch game.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, this is not looking good. Yeah. Do you think this is all stuff that can be fixed, or do you think Game Freak is even interested in fixing it? I'm sure they've already made their money back on pre-orders alone. It's not like they really have an impetus to do it, but.
That's the thing, right? Like, could it be fixed? Maybe, but it requires some major effort, and let's be honest here, the Pokemon Company wants money. That's what they're interested in. It's why there's this constant release cycle, because that is the focus is profit and only profit, as opposed to actually giving people the time to develop their games. And I just don't see them being like, oh yes, okay, let's take our team off of working on the next game, and instead we're going to spend however long we need to and devote however much money we need to fix this, when it's already making us money. Because this is the most pre-ordered Pokemon game ever. It's going to be probably one of, if not the best-selling games of the franchise, regardless of all these issues, which is frustrating in its own right, but it also means there's no real, like you said, there's no impetus for them to fix this. There's nothing telling them oh, we need to make sure this doesn't happen again.
I think Brilliant Diamond and Shiny Pearl received some patches, I think, because that game also released in a bit of a rough stage. So I hope, because I think it's getting to a point where they are receiving some bad rap that they don't want to. The marketing team may be a little aware of what's going on the internet and some of the news.
You would hope.
And and something that I also wanted to point out, some people, you can ask refund for digital games on Switch if you contact Nintendo. So
you can do it once, I think.
Yeah, if you're not that big of a Nintendo fan, of a Pokemon fan, and you bought the game thinking that it would be something that it isn't, you can ask for refund. And I think if there's some refund going on, that's another sign for the company, okay, this is not right, we have to fix this and stuff like that. So but I also don't blame people buying the game, because I know that a lot of people love Pokemon, and to have a new open world Pokemon release, it's very exciting. And of course, people are going to pre-order that. I don't blame on people buying the game. I just think that Pokemon should be aware that if they keep going on that path, there'll be a point where people will start to not buy their games anymore. I mean, they are in a very comfortable position right now, but I think they have to make the effort to maintain that. I hope.
I mean, the Pokemon Company, they're in a different position where they can afford to put out a dud every now and then and still be okay as a company. And as much as I really do hope they will go and fix this game, because I would like to play it someday. But if they don't and they do just move on to the next one, I mean, you can only hope that they'll just learn some lessons in the development process and make a better game. But I don't think that's what people want. I think people would like to see this game fixed and maybe supported for a bit longer than is the norm. I don't think people are going to be clamoring for a new mainline Pokemon game for anytime soon after this, just considering we got this and Legends Arceus in the same year. So I think the best approach would be fix the game, support it for a couple years, and then put out something new. We don't really need an annual release cycle for this franchise. I don't think.
At the very least, I think the game is probably going to receive DLC, just going off of what happened with Sword and Shield, and also I think there have been some leaks of potential things that could be in a third, or could be in a DLC. But the thing is, like, even then, I would assume that they're probably still going to keep up the yearly release schedule. Like, I would imagine the DLC gets released next year, then, like, they release something the year after, maybe, like, a Let's Go game, and then the year following that is Gen 10, because they've been on this, like, 3-year generation cycle for, I think, maybe a decade at this point, and I don't see them changing that, sadly.
And I think even if they don't change the timing of release, I think they should hire more people or just make the Game Freak a little bigger, because we hear from other games like Assassin's Creed, like Call of Duty, that they actually managed to get some big games out in a timely manner. In the past, we had some issues with that, but I think, for example, Call of Duty did something where every game would have a different developer, so they actually would have more time to develop the next one. But like, if you want to keep that release in that time, I think the company should be aware of how many, because if you think that Legends Arceus was developed by Game Freak and Scarlet and Violet was also developed by Game Freak, they actually had to split the team into two open world experiences. And they never developed an open world experience. So it seems like they are just asking too much from the developers, the Pokemon company.
Yeah, there has to be something they can do to, like, help remedy this. Some people have said that, like, just adding more people might not help. But, like, get different developers, expand individual teams. Like, I don't know. Monster Hunter has two teams that both work at Capcom, and they both get to release games basically yearly. And you don't hear people complaining about Monster Hunter coming out, like, rushed and unpolished.
Right. I mean,
there's ways to do this.
Yeah, it could come down to, maybe making some changes in the engine or investing in a new engine or, some level of something technical behind the scenes that they just haven't been willing to do for whatever reason.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, normally this is the section of the show where we get into other recent releases to go play. Unfortunately, it's kind of slim pickings this week. I mean, there is Garfield Lasagna Party, I will say. So, I mean,
that's a day one for me.
That, yeah,
there is always Garfield Lasagna Party.
Yeah. I don't know why this game exists, but I mean, sure. It's 32 Garfield minigames. I guess just when I think of like the major characters, the major cartoon characters who just get people excited, Garfield is not really up there very much nowadays, but I don't know.
He's gonna get played by Chris Pratt soon, so mark your calendars.
I always think about these games like these shovelwares, and I think, man, there's probably a passionate developer behind this. Like, there's probably people this was the work of their life, probably working on this. So it's always interesting to at least see the trailers and see how the game actually works.
Yeah, I hope that's true. Microids puts out a lot of licensed games, so it doesn't seem like a bad game or anything. It's just it's not gonna resonate with most people. That's fine. I mean, neither is Smurfs Kart. We also got Smurfs Kart this week. I guess I could see some Mario Kart fans who are like really hungry for a new kart racer going over to that, but I'm not a big Smurfs guy.
None of the Mario characters are blue enough.
No, yeah, exactly.
That's another one from Microids, right?
Yeah, I think it is actually. Yeah, they're on a roll lately. Now, if you're looking for a good party game, you do have a new option this week with Let's Sing 2023, which is like a karaoke game, which I know people have some fun with those. Now, I'm not going to do that because I'm not a good singer and I'm not going to try and pretend like I am. But I guess you don't have to be a good singer to enjoy karaoke. You just have to enjoy singing along to stuff. You know, it's not like you have to go buy a karaoke machine anymore if you want to like have a party or something. You could just like buy the game on your Switch and it's actually kind of cool technology. So it sounds weird, but like I don't think like you could probably still buy like a microphone to like plug into your Switch dock. I'd imagine, but you actually to do this karaoke game, you use your phone. So you install an app on your phone, and you're singing into your phone, and it's like communicating with your Switch somehow, and that's how it knows if you're doing good or not in the karaoke. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It does get around needing another peripheral.
Right.
Yeah, true. I remember on the Wii U, you had to have the microphone. It was one of the release titles on the Wii U, which is kind of weird, but it was. So yeah, I think it's a neat party game. A lot of the time I don't enjoy those games that much because I'm not a person who really enjoys pop music. So a lot of the musics that they chose for those games, like Just Dance and Sing, I'm not that familiar with. But I think for a lot of people, that's a good time.
Yeah. Well, the big thing nowadays is, you know, like with the Just Dance games, they really want you to subscribe to their subscription service, right?
Yeah.
So that you get all the songs that Just Dance has ever had, and I think Let's Sing is doing something similar now too. Because the main differences between these games are they update the song list every year, you know? So it's really seems like they're just trying to get people to subscribe to their subscription service, which good luck to them with that. I'm sure there are people out there, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
Now, here's an indie game I think some people might actually be interested to know about. So, Finding Paradise is a sequel to, I guess it's a somewhat obscure game. So it's a narrative-driven experience over on the PC. It's called To the Moon, and it's a very highly acclaimed, just very well-told story. It's kind of a sad game, but the whole focus on this game is just experiencing the story, getting to know these characters. And that game was ported to the Switch, I want to say maybe like 2 years ago. And this is the sequel to that game. And it's kind of has this, you know, top-down RPG, 16-bit style. They're very unique games, and they have a pretty big audience. So, yeah, I just wanted to highlight that real quick. I don't know if you guys are familiar with these games at all, but I've heard great things.
Yeah, I was actually, I liked the trailer. It seems to be a very emotional kind of experience. I already heard about To the Moon. Some people saying to me that it was like this great story, and I just like the art style. I think it's really, I don't know exactly why, but it's really just charismatic to see those small characters interacting with each other. But yeah, I actually was a little bit interested in playing the original To the Moon before. But I'll keep an eye out to see if it appears on a sale or something like that. It seems to be my kind of game just because I really like those narrative-driven experiences.
Yeah, good. It's like cuddling up with a good book at night, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I'd say that just about covers it for the notable releases. I mean, there's so much stuff on the eShop. Can't talk about everything, but yeah, we're getting into the holidays, so you know, there's still some good games coming out this year. I think most of Nintendo's big games are out for the year. But yeah, so smaller stuff, but I don't think anyone is hurting for things to play right now. Well, on that note, before we wrap things up, let's get into our final segment, which is what has everyone been playing lately? Now, I'll just say this. I am like in the very home stretch of Sonic Frontiers. So I am almost done with the game. I'm actually going to be writing my review for it today, Sunday, the day we were recording. And yeah, it's, you know, overall, I think my take on this game is it's a good game, but Switch is not where I would recommend most people play it.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Which is pretty much what I said last week, so I'm not going to dwell on this game too long, but
The funny thing about it is because my two consoles are the Xbox Series S and the Switch, right? So I don't want to buy on Switch, I go to buy on the Series S. But here's the issue. The game only runs on 30 FPS on the Series S. And I really would like to play it in 60. And I think the Series S can run on 60 FPS. So at the moment, I'm waiting for updates where they give a performance mode to us. So I'm a bit of a situation where I can't play the game right now.
Yeah, it does feel like a game that would benefit from that faster frame rate. I mean, it's perfectly playable at 30. The frame rate, it's not the frame rate the game runs at that I have an issue at. Well, let me rephrase that. The game is supposed to run at 30 frames per second on the Switch, but it doesn't. So I don't have an issue with 30 frames per second. I do have an issue with like 20 to 25 frames per second.
Right.
That's not, yeah.
It could be worse. It could be Scarlet and Violet.
Well, that's true, right? Like, don't take it for granted, I guess.
Listen, it's not like 10. It's fine. It's playable.
Yes.
The popping on Sonic Frontiers is kind of crazy, too.
Yeah, I will say, like, I noticed it a lot at first, and eventually I was able to kind of ignore it, but there are times when, like, you'll be going really fast towards, like, you set a marker on your map, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go over here, and you're like, where's the thing I'm supposed to get? I don't see it. And then it just pops in, like, right in front of you, and you're like, oh, there it is. Like, okay, great.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's just, it's not a pretty game, really. I mean, I hate to, like, paint these broad strokes, because there are moments in this game where I am impressed. Like, the boss battles are really fun and very stylish and look great. The cyberspace levels, I think, hold up really well on the Switch. But it's just anything out in the open world that is not well optimized.
I see. It's inconsistent,
console.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's inconsistent, yeah. But I am still having fun with the game in spite of that, which I think is, pretty good praise, in terms of the game itself. But anyways, Luiz, since you are not playing Sonic Frontiers, what have you been playing?
Actually, two games that I want to talk about this week. First, it's just a demo. So Nintendo released a demo to Mario Strikers, and this was a game that I was interested into. So I felt, okay, this is the moment that I can see if I should buy this or not. So first, the demo is not very good because you can only play 7 matches. So and those matches you can only play on easy mode. So yeah, not a very nice. I think they do that because they know that if the game does not have a lot of content, so if they release a demo where you can just keep playing the matches, you'll not buy the full experience.
I mean, the game itself kind of feels like a demo for a real Mario Strikers game.
Yeah. So I only have 7 matches, so I decided, okay, I'll try to play those with my brother because I don't want to waste playing against the computer. And like we played 3 matches and we simply did not have fun. It was not a fun game to play. Maybe there's a learning curve that eventually you get good at the game and you understand it better, but it just felt really messy to control. And like, because sometimes with a Nintendo game, like for example Splatoon, when we released, there was moments where I was not very good at the game, but I was actually still having fun. And with Mario Strikers, I did not have that feeling. I think the game is just not very good. So I actually appreciate Nintendo releasing that demo because I would not buy the game. I would not waste my money because they released it.
Oh. Well, I'm sure that's not what they want to hear, but I can't say I blame you.
I think it had the opposite result. Yeah. So, but the game that I actually bought this week that was on sale was Golf Story, because Sports Story was shown on the last Indie World. So it was a game that I was planning to play for a while, and I'm actually having a lot of fun. It's a really just silly experience. The writing is just super clever. There's a lot of small jokes with the characters and the story. And the actual golf gameplay is pretty solid. Like they are always throwing something unexpected for you to play. So it's really nice. And then the story starts very normal. Like you're a golf player, you're trying to win some matches, and then suddenly start to appear some zombie stuff, some supernatural stuff. So I like the twist that the game has, and to make the story a little bit more interesting. So far, a great experience.
Yeah, I remember playing Golf Story quite a while ago. I never ended up finishing the game, but it was definitely the kind of thing where you definitely had some chuckles playing it.
Yeah.
And is it like a long game? Like how far into it are you? Is it, because it looks like it's like an RPG, but I'm wondering if it plays that way or if it really is just like start to finish kind of linear story.
So I don't think it is that long. I'm checking here to see how long it is. It doesn't seem to feel. It doesn't it feels to be like one of those smaller RPG experiences. Mm-hmm. So here on How Long to Beats they say 15 hours. So that sounds about right. I think I'm right at the beginning. But like they have different places. There's an overworld, so you have different places to play golf, different scenarios. There's snow, there's a desert, stuff like that. So it feels like it actually has some content.
No, that's good to hear. So has it made you more excited for the sequel, you'd say, now that you're playing
for sure. Yeah. I'm planning to finish that one. So if I actually enjoy the game, I think I'll try to buy the Sports Story Day 1. Very
cool. You love to hear it. You're picking up these indie world showcases are working on you, Luiz.
Yeah.
What about you, Nicholas? What have you been playing this last week?
Sadly, not too much. It's been a pretty chill week for me. I've been doing some reading, which has been fun, but game-wise, it's mostly just been playing a little bit more Splatoon, as I've been doing for, I guess, 2 months now, which is a scary thought. And otherwise, I've been playing some Picross, and I guess that's always fun.
Yeah, Picross is like a great, you want a little something to kill some time, and you want to work your brain a little bit, but not too hard,
Yeah, no, it's a great, just like kind of de-stressing game. Just sit down, do some Picross for like an hour or so. There's definitely enough of it on the Switch. I think there's like 7 main like Picross S games on the Switch, and there's a few other ones aside from those. And even just one Picross game can take a very long time to beat based on how fast you're doing the puzzles.
Yeah, I don't know why there are so many. I mean, they must sell well if they keep releasing them, but I don't know. It's an interesting approach. It's the same thing they did during the 3DS. There were a ton of like individual Picross games on the 3DS eShop. Which
are all of them from different publishers? Those games are from different publishers or the same?
I think it's the same for the most part. It's just this one company that keeps putting out a ton of Picross games on the system.
Yeah, there are a couple like spin-offs, like collaborations with other companies, but for the most part, all the games are like Picross S or Picross E back in the 3DS days. Those are all developed by Jupiter, who's like the main. They own the actual Picross name, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I see.
I do wish that like the 3DS got a few unique ones, like Picross 3D. I do wish the Switch had something like that, because for the most part, it's basically just all Picross, but just times 8, because there's 8 different games or something. So I do wish there was a more unique experience on the system.
Yeah. Dude, I would buy a new Picross 3D game the day it comes out. Like, those were some of my favorite handheld puzzle games of all time. And they felt like games that, like, to me, like, could really only work on the DS and 3DS, because you really need that touchscreen with the stylus, and like the way you hold the DS when you're playing those games. You've got your fingers on the triggers to kind of like toggle between different modes, and then, or I guess I think you have like your left finger like on like the left trigger, and your right hand is holding the stylus. So I'm like struggling to imagine, like, they'd have to do a lot of work to make those games work, I feel like, on the Switch, because the Switch doesn't really have a stylus. It's not really, I feel like it'd be hard to like be very precise on that touchscring.
Yeah, you would have to rework how it functions, but man, it would be so worth it if they did.
I would love to see them try. Oh man. Well, hey, that wraps up our show for the week. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in to episode 33 of Nintendo Everything Refresh. I hope you guys all have a great holiday week, whatever holiday you're celebrating this week. And like I said, if you don't have a holiday, just go treat yourself to a nice dinner, and leave it in the comments. Tell us what you ate this week. And yeah, we'll be back at you next week with everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo.